Do you know some of the most popular and spooky haunted houses in the world? Today, we will walk into the top 10 haunted houses together, and everyone is welcome to add it in the comment area. New viewers can like and subscribe to the little bell so as not to miss the great video. We start with 10th place. Tips: timid people, be cautious. 10th Winchester Mystery House. The Winchester Mystery House is located in San Jose, California, USA, and was built by Sarah Winchester, the wife of William Winchester, the owner of the Winchester rifle. Sarah, as a well-known American arms dealer's wife, lived a prosperous life, but fate was unpredictable. Her husband and youngest daughter died suddenly, which was a huge blow to Sarah. Grief-stricken, Sarah rushed to the doctor and found an astrologer to ask why her life was so miserable as a result. The astrologer told her that her husband's rifle had caused too many casualties and that her family had long been cursed by the souls who died under the guns. To break the curse, she would have to leave her hometown of Connecticut and go west, where she would build a large house for the unjust souls to live in. So since 1884, the superstitious Sarah had started the huge project of the Winchester Mystery House in San Jose, California. She first bought a farm with 8 houses and then used her husband's huge inheritance to build houses one by one. She continued to build until her death in 1922, a total of 38 years, and the house was built to a height of 7 stories. As for why the Winchester Mystery House is weird, first of all, it has a staggering number of rooms, 160 rooms, and the design inside is also very strange and confusing. For example, some stairs go up and down a dead end, some doors open to a wall directly, or there is a 3-meter pit in the ground. There are also a ridiculously large number of doors and windows in the house, and sometimes a window pops up on the floor, and someone who doesn't know it can step on it and maybe fall down. There's also a very special thing about the Winchester Mystery House, that is, the number 13 is used many times. Westerners dislike the number 13. The doorway is lined up with 13 columns of special cornerstones made of concrete, and Sarah had a room that only she could enter. There is nothing in it, but there are 13 coats hanging on the wall, which are said to be for ghosts. The large dance studio is also very exquisite, and the sound-absorbing device inside is spliced together with 13 lightweight boards, and the chandeliers with gas as energy are also 13. Legend has it that strange noises can be heard in this house, and strange phenomena can be seen, and even those who do not believe in ghosts at first feel furious when they come. Today, the Winchester Mystery House has been developed into a tourist attraction, but the architectural design of the house is so strange and complicated that even the staff have to look at the map to move around it. Otherwise, it is easy to get lost. If tourists come to visit, they must have a tour guide. Otherwise, once they get lost, they will have to walk for at least half a day to get out. 9th Château de Brissac, France. The castle is located in the Loire Valley region of France, about 15 kilometers from the city of Angers. It has a long history, dating back to the 11th century when it was built by Fulco III of Angers. However, the castle we see today was mainly rebuilt in 1455 by Pierre. In 1465, Pierre was killed at the Battle of Montreuil, and his son Jacques inherited the castle and lived there with his wife Charlotte. It was Jacques and Charlotte who turned this originally magnificent castle into a haunted house that everyone feared. It turned out that Charlotte was the illegitimate daughter of King Charles Sethig and his mistress Agnes Sorel, and although she was married to Jacques, they had little foundation for love. Later, Charlotte fell in love with a hunter who accompanied her on hunting, and the two had an affair. One day, the two had a private meeting, and the servant saw it, and the servant told Jacques about it, and Jacques caught them in bed on the spot. Seeing this, Jacques was very angry. He killed Charlotte and her lover in a room in the church tower. As for how he killed them, there are different accounts. Some say that he used a sword, some say that he stabbed them with a knife, and some say that he stabbed the hunter to death but strangled Charlotte. Since then, the castle has been haunted. At first there were 2 ghosts, then one of them disappeared, and only Charlotte's ghost remained. She always wears a green dress, so she is called the Green Lady. It is said that her face is particularly intimidating. With hollow eyes and nose positions, she often moans in the wee hours of the morning and likes to wander around the tower where she was killed. Today, the Chateau de Brissac is still inhabited by the family of the Marquis Charles André, who opened the castle to the public and allow visitors to experience what it is like to spend the night in the castle. However, you have to be mentally prepared before you go. Maybe you can really meet the Green Lady. 8th Poveglia, Italy. Located in the lagoon between Venice and Lido in northern Italy, the island of Poveglia is known as one of the scariest places in the world. First of all, let me tell you about the history of this island. It is really a dark history full of death. The island of Poveglia was originally a deserted island, but as early as 421, many people fled from Padua and Este to escape the barbarian invasion and settled on the island. By the 9th century, the island's population began to grow, but in 1379, Venice was attacked by the Genoa fleet, and the island's inhabitants were forced to move to Giudecca. It had been abandoned ever since. And when did Poveglia Island become a ghost island? It all started in 1776. At the time of the epidemic in Europe, the abandoned island became a natural quarantine area for those infected with the plague, an isolated island for isolation, where there was no medical treatment at all, and the patient was just waiting to die during this period. More than 100,000 people died on the island. Their bodies were burned and buried in the island's plague pits. To this day, the soil of the island still contains the ashes left by the charred corpses of the past, and it can be said to be a natural crematorium. And the ashes are mixed with dirt, which is terrifying to think about. After the plague ended, the island of Poveglia was abandoned again until 1922, when a psychiatric hospital was built on the island to house the mentally ill who are dangerous to society. Unexpectedly, many patients said that they had seen the ghosts of plague patients on the island and heard the painful wails of those who had been burned or tortured to death all night long. There are also rumors that a psychiatrist on the island went crazy and claimed that he had found a cure for the insanity and performed craniotomy on patients every night in the bell tower with chisels, hammers, and drills, until one day, he suddenly jumped from the bell tower, and strangely, jumping from such a high place, he was not even dead, and he writhed his body in pain on the ground. It is because of these terrifying legends that the island of Poveglia has become a forbidden place in the hearts of Italians. None of the fishermen are willing to venture close to the island because they fear that if their nets are cast, they will catch not fish, but human bones. The Italian government also forbade people to go to the island at will, and only briefly during the year when the grapes were harvested did people have the opportunity to land on the island for a short time. 7th Stanley Hotel. The Stanley Hotel is located in Estes Park, Colorado, surrounded by Rocky Mountain National Park. However, it's not famous for the scenery, but for the eerie legends. The hotel dates back to 1929 and was built by inventor Freeland Oscar Stanley. Stanley invented the Stanley Steamer automobile and made a lot of money from it. While he and his wife were on vacation here, they fell in love with the place and decided to build a hotel after the completion of the hotel. It attracted many celebrities and wealthy people to come here for vacation, and it was in the limelight for a while. But gradually, everyone began to find that the hotel was not peaceful. First of all, it was said that they had met the ghost of Stanley's wife Flora, who was very fond of throwing banquets and was a social expert. And after her death, so tourists swore that in the dead of night, when they walked into the concert hall, they could faintly hear her hearty laughter, as if she was still holding a banquet here. Others say that you can hear Flora playing the piano, but when you follow the sound, you find that there is no one in front of the piano. Even more outrageous, in the early 80s of the 20th century, a couple was brutally murdered in a room on the 8th floor of the hotel. Since then, the room has been closed, but even so, some tourists say that when they pass by the door of the guest room, they see a looming ghost. From time to time, there are some strange sounds in the room, like someone is crying in a low voice, and it seems that someone is muttering to themselves. It is also said that the ghost of the hotel's housekeeper, William Waiter, who worked here for a long time before his death, did not leave at all. Some people say that they met him in the hotel, and he still served the guests with due diligence as he did when he was alive, helping them open the door and even answer the phone. Of course, another important reason why the Stanley Hotel is so famous is that the famous writer Stephen King was inspired by nightmares here to write the world-famous suspense novel The Shining. Today, the Stanley Hotel also attracts a large number of adventure lovers and paranormal enthusiasts because of these supernatural legends. The hotel has also followed the trend by launching paranormal tours, where guides will take visitors through all corners of the hotel, telling mysterious stories and legends in vivid voices, allowing visitors to immerse themselves in the terrifying atmosphere. 6 Monte Cristo Homestead, Australia. Located in Junee, New South Wales, Australia, the mansion was built in 1885 as a 2-story Victorian manor house that Christopher William Crawley bought in 1875. Monte Cristo Homestead overlooks the town, and from the outside, it's magnificent. However, although the Crowleys were rich, they were very harsh on their servants. There were 2 maids in the Crowley family, one of whom was pregnant with the child of the male owner, Christopher, but later jumped off the balcony and fell to her death, and there is still a blood stain on the ground below the balcony. There was also a young stableman in the Crowley family, Maurice, who was sick and slept in the stable, but Christopher thought he was pretending to be sick and set his straw mattress on fire, and Maurice was too sick to get up, therefore he was burned alive. Now at night, you can still hear the crying of the stable. On December 14th, 1910, Christopher, who was unkind, finally died, and the cause of death was also very strange. A carbuncle was on his neck, which was a minor problem, but this carbuncle was infected after rubbing the collar and broken. Then he died. After that, the Crowley family continued to have strange things. In 1917, Christopher's youngest granddaughter, Ethel, when she was being held by a nanny, suddenly seemed to be pushed by an invisible force, fell down the stairs, and unfortunately died. The hostess, Elizabeth, could not face the successive deaths of her husband and granddaughter and locked herself in the house until August 12, 1933, when she died of a ruptured appendix at the age of 92. The last member of the Crowley family left the house in 1948, and since then the house has been vacant and guarded by a housekeeper, during which time one of the housekeepers was killed by robbers at the gate. In 1963, it was bought by Olive Ryan. When the Ryan family moved in, they also encountered a lot of strange things. For example, the lights in the room would turn on inexplicably, and the family's pet cats and dogs were reluctant to enter the house when they moved. But even more terrible things are still to come. Ryan's chickens were strangled to death, the parrots in the cage were also choked to death, and even the kittens were brutally killed for no apparent reason. Many people say that this is because the former owners of the house, the Crowleys, notoriously disliked animals. 5th Banff Springs Hotel, Canada. The Banff Hotel was built in 1888 and is one of the oldest hotels in Canada. It's in Banff National Park, surrounded by mountains, ice fields, rivers, forests, just like a fairy tale. However, when it comes to this hotel, the most talked about thing is not the scenery, but those supernatural legends. It is said that there are several ghosts living in it. One of the most well-known is the Ghost Bride, who was in the early 30s of the 20th century. A young couple got married in Banff and rented a bridal suite before the wedding feast began. The bride walked up the marble staircase to the banquet hall to find her husband, but the wedding dress accidentally touched the candle next to the staircase, and it caught fire. The scene was particularly chaotic at the time. The bride tripped over her wedding dress, fell down the stairs, and died from a broken neck. Since then, many people have reported seeing a ghost bride dancing alone in the banquet hall or walking up the stairs where the accident occurred. Someone else was outside the bridal suite when they heard strange noises coming from inside. And the legend of room 873 is also scary. There was a man who lived in room 873 with his wife and young daughter, but he inexplicably killed his family and then committed suicide. Later guests staying in this room said they would be awakened at night by terrifying screams. The waitress who cleaned the room also said that she saw bloody fingerprints on the bathroom mirror that could not be erased. The hotel had no choice but to seal this room. In addition, there is the legend of Sam, the doorman. Sam was the hotel's doorman and worked at the hotel until 1925 before his death. He said that he would come back to haunt it after his death, and it turned out that many people really said that they saw his ghost. Sometimes elevator doors open and close inexplicably, and mysterious phantom lights appear. Some guests also said that they were helped by an elderly Scottish doorman in an old-fashioned uniform to carry their luggage. But in a blink of an eye, the person disappeared, and everyone thought that it must be Sam's ghost working. In addition to these, there is also a legend that there is a ghost bartender in the hotel who will persuade drunk guests to go to bed. There's even a headless man playing bagpipes. 4th, Highgate Cemetery. Highgate Cemetery is located in North London, right on the slopes of Highgate Hill. Its birth is related to the explosion of London's population in the 19th century. At that time, the cemetery in the city could not hold so many dead people, and there were corpses everywhere. So in 1836, Parliament urgently passed a bill for the London Cemetery Company to start building cemeteries in the north, south, and east of London, and Highgate Cemetery was one of them. The designer of the Highgate Cemetery is the famous garden master Stephen Geary, and out of professional habits, even the cemetery is particularly beautiful. Winding paths weave between tombs and monuments, Egyptian-style pillars and obelisks, lush trees, and spectacular catacombs are here. In 1839, the cemetery was officially opened and soon became a resting place for the wealthy. The most famous of them is Karl Marx, the philosopher Herbert Spencer, the writer George Eliot, and the scientist Michael Faraday. However, in the 30s of the 21st century, the cemetery fell into disrepair due to the war, and in the 60s, the situation was even worse, and many places were dilapidated. It was also from this time that some supernatural legends began to prevail. Since the middle of the 20th century, the Highgate Express and the Hampstead have received several letters from the masses about their encounters with ghosts at Highgate Cemetery. One of them claimed to have seen a ghost with evil, glowing red eyes, glaring at them through the cemetery gates. Another visitor said he was strolling along Swain Lane when he was attacked by an unidentified creature. The beast swooped down from a high cemetery wall and disappeared. Later, various gossips spread more and more outrageous rumors, and some even said that vampires were seen crawling out of the cemetery. In addition, the coffins here often explode, and scientists say that it is because the coffins are too sealed and the miasma inside cannot come out, which caused the explosions. The solution is to drill a small hole in the coffin, insert a tube, and light a match to allow the gas to burn out hygienically. 3rd, Amityville Horror. The story of this haunted house begins in 1974 at about 3 o'clock in the morning on November 13, 1974, in a 3-story villa at No. 100 Ocean Boulevard in the Amityville district of Long Island, New York. A tragedy occurred that shocked the whole United States. Ronald DeFeo, the youngest son of the DeFeo family, shot his parents and brothers one by one while they were asleep. Later, at the trial, Ronald said that his body was controlled by a mysterious force at that time, and he was not governed by his own will at all, so he committed this unforgivable crime. But the court didn't buy it at all and didn't adopt his arguments. A year later, Mr. and Mrs. Lutz bought the house at the price of $80,000. It is said that when they bought the house, they had no idea that the tragedy had happened here. As a result, not long after moving in, all kinds of strange things popped up one after another. Mr. Lutz had become short-tempered, completely different from before, and was particularly obsessed with heating the house with firewood. But his wife, Kathy, did not feel cold at all. His son, George, always woke up at 3:15 a.m., which is the time when DeFeo's family was destroyed. Another time, the night before his wife Kathy's brother's engagement party, the nanny 100 cash for paying to the banquet organizer somehow disappeared from the home. What's even more terrifying is that one night, the nanny, who helped take care of the daughter Amy, was locked in the bedroom closet by an invisible force. Amy also often said she had a friend named Jody. In order to solve these supernatural problems, the priest trainee was invited by the Lutz couple. When he entered the house to pray for them, a large swarm of flies suddenly poured upstairs, buzzing around him, and he also heard a hostile voice telling him to get out quickly, and the priest turned around and ran. The next day, the nun, Aunt Helena, came to visit the house and suddenly became very ill as soon as she entered the house. Eventually, the Lutz family stayed here for only 28 days before moving out in a hurry. After these things were exposed, they caused a huge sensation. Writer Jay Anson wrote the non-fiction horror novel, The Amityville Horror, based on the Lutz family. As soon as the book was published, it became an instant hit, and it was printed 13 times before and after, and sold more than 6 million copies. In 1979, the movie of the same name was released, which earned the attention of the audience and was a big hit at the box office. However, there is also controversy about this matter. Some people feel that the Lutz family is deliberately hyping and exaggerating. Later, a reporter went to the prison to interview Ronald, who was still serving a prison sentence, and he said that the claims in court about being instructed by evil forces were all lies, justifying an excuse for insanity to escape lethal punishment. But the Lutz family has always insisted that they are telling true stories from their own experiences. Second, Borgvatnet Priest House. Borgvatnet is actually a very small village in northern Sweden, belonging to the city of Ragunda, and by 2022, it has a permanent population of about 65 people. The village is so famous thanks to the Borgvatnet Priest's house, which was built in 1876. The house was first haunted in 1927, when the priest who lived here said that the clean clothes that had been hung out were ripped to pieces, as if there were invisible hands making trouble. Since then, in the decades that followed, nearly every new pastor, as well as their families and guests, had strange things happen. For example, something moved on its own inexplicably. You can hear creepy screams in the middle of the night. There is also the old rocking chair in the living room, which will rock on its own when no one sits on it, as if there is really an invisible person sitting on it. Priest Rudolf Jen saw a gray lady slowly approaching him from the other side of the hall in 1930, but when he walked into the room himself, he found it empty. 6 years later, a man named Otto Lindgren and his wife moved in. Although they had never seen the gray lady, they heard footsteps up and down the stairs, and the strange opening and closing of the door. Things got even stranger in 1941 when Inga Flodden, the parish secretary, stayed overnight in the house and woke up at 3 a.m. to find 3 ladies staring at her from the couch across from her bed. Even when she turned on the bedside lamp, they were still there, staring at her curiously. One of the ladies was dressed in black, one in purple, and one in gray. They all had sad expressions, and the lady in gray was with a pile of knitwear on her lap. Later, because of frequent supernatural events, this house was completely out of control. Many people swore that they had seen the ghost appear with their own eyes. Not only did it attract tourists from all over the world, but even the production team of the high-rated TV show Ghost Hunter in the United States came to shoot it specifically to unravel the mystery here. First, Whaley House. Located in Old Town San Diego, California, Whaley House dates back to 1857 when it was built by James Whaley. In the beginning, it was just a granary, and later it became the residence of the Whaley family. But the terrifying thing is that since the Whaley family moved in, bad luck had haunted them. Shortly after moving into the house, the Whaley family's son died of scarlet fever in the house. A few months later, a fire destroyed the house's grocery store. In 1885, the second daughter, Violet Whaley, shot herself in the house due to depression and a failed marriage. But the family's misfortune didn't end there. Several other members of the Whaley family also died in the house, including the Whaleys and their 4 children, Lillian, Thomas, Violet, and Francis. As for why this house is so evil, it is because the place where this house is located was once a public execution ground in San Diego. In 1852, Robinson, known as the Yankee Jim, was hanged here, and his execution is said to have been particularly horrific because the rope used for the hanging was so long that he struggled for a full 45 minutes before dying. According to local customs, such a person will definitely become an evil spirit after death. It is also said that the Whaley family, who later died in this house, also became a nocturnal ghost, especially Mrs. Whaley. As soon as she appeared, the house would emit a strong smell of perfume, because her favorite before her death was perfume. Okay, that's all about the top 10 haunted houses in the world today. Nowadays, many of these haunted houses are open to the public. Would you like to come to these haunted houses for one night?